Welcome aboard Just Jets with your captain, Matt O'Leary. Buckle up and enjoy the ride.
Hello and welcome to episode number 23 of Just Jets. What's going on? I am Matt O'Leary, your host. Going to be talking New York Jets football again with you. Oh, it's a lot of fun doing this show. I'm so amped up. I really am liking the new background the more and more I do it. The sign, it came out phenomenal. I absolutely love it. So thank you to them for getting that over to me relatively quickly. It was a good experience. And if you want one, definitely let me know in the comments and I'll shout them out below. Neon Signs USA. They do nice work over there for sure. So today's episode, usually it opens with a monologue, then I get into the questions. Instead of doing a monologue this week, I'm going to have an interview guest, and it is with Ryan from Jets Talk 24/7. One of the great YouTubers that the New York Jets fan base has. There's a lot of awesome Jets YouTubers. It's been a blast working with, so many talented ones. And I'm excited to speak to Ryan in today's episode because he was really on point with his opinion on Jamal Adams from the get-go. And to be quite honest with you, at first, I didn't necessarily agree with him 100%. I thought that he was maybe being a little bit too harsh on Jamal, but from all along, he's been right. So I wanted to get him on, get his opinion on everything that's been going on. Obviously, this past week was a little hectic in my world and Jamal Adams. So I wanted to get his take on that, and we talk about Jamal and what the future of him and the organization is going to be. So without further ado, let's get into the interview with Ryan from Jets Talk 24/7. All right, I would like to welcome on Ryan from Jets Talk 24/7. You could find him on his YouTube page at Jets Talk 24/7. And you want to plug your socials too, Rye?
Yeah, sure. I'm on Facebook. I just started a Twitch, Instagram, all that sort of stuff. Jets Talk 24/7. Yeah, catch me all over the place. YouTube's the main spot, of course.
Absolutely. And obviously on Tuesday nights, usually we have our panel going. So definitely going to want to subscribe to his channel when we get that back up and running. It's a whole lot of fun just talking Jets over there. The reason why I wanted to bring Ryan on is because, well, there's been a ton of Jamal Adams drama, specifically with me this week. But more importantly, I wanted to really talk to you about the whole saga because you were one of the first people who was on the Jamal doesn't want to be here bandwagon. So what made you feel like that was the case when you did? Can you go through that process a little bit?
So it all started back in like 2018. I'd see little, tweets about Jamal of, liking, the Dallas Cowboys should pay him whatever he wants when he becomes free agent. Like all these little things. And I was like, all right, whatever. You're obviously a sports player. You want to get as much much money as you can possibly get. And, I didn't think anything of it. Then after he was benched week 2 or whatever, and he took all the Jet stuff off of social media, I was like, that's a little fishy. And then when we got to the trade deadline and he threw that whole tantrum, especially I'm not going to talk to the GM for like 3 days. And then when he went to the owner, it struck me as, hey, I'm going to talk to the owner because he wants me here. Like I'm not worth more than you, but like he trumps you. And that's sort of how I got that. And it looked like a shot at Douglas. So I kind of got that feeling that he was upset that he was not traded to Dallas, not that he was upset that he was shopped.
Right, absolutely. And if I remember correctly, right after the trade deadline or right around then, you made a video about all of this and your opinion on it. So can you go into what made you make that jump to make that video and then kind of what happened after that?
So I was pretty fired up because I had just bought Jamal's jersey this last offseason.
Right.
And I have the shirt with the Sam Adams and like Jamal and Sam and everything. I like all about Jamal. And to watch that happen, like kind of got me sour. And then as I started watching a little bit more, and especially as we started seeing the social media posts and things like that, I made the video and I was like, hey, look, I don't think he wants to be here. And I'm done with Jamal. And I got a ton of hate. It's probably one of my like least liked videos across YouTube. But I stuck by my guns. I was like, you know what? I didn't wear my Jamal jersey from the trade deadline pretty much through like February. And then I put it on after, I think, the combine or so when Douglas was talking like, hey, we want to make him a lifetime Jet. I was like, all right, you know what? Swallow my pride. Quit being a baby. Let's just root for Jamal. And then all this stuff happens. And I haven't worn it again since.
And part of the reason why I wanted to bring up kind of the past too is because I remember when you made that video and a majority of the comments were like, you're crazy and this and that. Not many people were on your side. If you did a poll now, I feel like at least 75% of the people would be on your side.
I would think so. I mean, so I've actually done a poll recently, although it wasn't as strong as I would have thought. I put, should the Jets trade Jamal, which
Okay.
is kind of a two-sided question, because you don't want to trade him because he's a good talent and you want to hold him on the team. But it was pretty much like 50-50. It was like split down the middle. I thought for sure it'd be like, oh, get him out of here. Like, I'm done with this guy. That's been the vocal side of things, I think. A lot of fans upset. I got a little chuckle out of your social media workings the last few days.
Yeah, so I'll get into that briefly and then just discuss. So I made basically the reason why I got blocked, or I'm assuming that I got blocked, is because I made a meme. It was like Jamal Adams bingo, and I listed out all like the things that he always does. Like one of them was tweet about Dallas, one of them was like the phrase all love and stuff like that. But I didn't tag him in it, and I never tag players in that stuff. I don't know. I don't really like doing that. I think it's cheesy and whatever. So I just wrote Jamal. I think I captioned it like Jamal Adams bingo already, or what are we going to hit this week in Jamal Adams bingo? And then I went back because I know he retweeted a stat from PFF, which is something he always does as well. Anything positive he wants to get out there. So I knew it was on his page, so I was going to go and look at it because I wanted to use it for a video. And then it said user block, or a user not found or whatever. So that's why I was blocked. So to me, that just shows that he searches his name. And someone who searches his name and cares that much about what people are saying, that's a scary thing in New York, no?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you have the largest media market in the country, and he's got thin skin. So that's what it comes off as, and it's not good. It's not healthy. It's just going to cause you like to be overly anxious all the time, and then just kind of not focus on your craft.
Right, and that's the thing too. Like because I wasn't the only one. So many people came in and said, hey, like he blocked me too and stuff like that. And believe me, I understand why athletes block people sometimes. There's crazy people on the internet who just say awful things. But if it's something as simple as disagreeing with how they're handling the contract negotiations, doesn't that come off as a little weird?
Yeah, it comes off as a little childish. I mean, maybe he had like multiple people send him the bingo board, and they were like, "Oh, this guy did it," and then he's just like, "Oh, I don't even want to hear it."
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see, because it feels petty from someone who's as powerful as a personality as Jamal is.
Absolutely. So that kind of brings me into where I wanted to go next is, do you think Jamal Adams has burned too many bridges with the Jets and that it's unsalvageable? Where do you think it goes from here?
I don't think so, just because the Jets are handling it really well. Like Adam Gase has come out and said he supports Jamal. Greg Williams has come out and said it. Le'Veon Bell has recently come out and said it. Joe Douglas has said it. The ownership, I think, obviously wants him here. I think it is salvageable. I just think that I don't think Jamal wants to be here, and that's the big linchpin.
Right, absolutely. And to me, when someone has handled it the way that he has, which demanding the trade, talking about how much money he wants, just pretty much anything he's done on social media over the last month or two. I just don't see how at the end of this he could be able to turn around and be like, sign with the Jets. Even if they did offer him a contract right now, it would seem extremely hypocritical in my eyes. You tell me if you feel differently, that he was just saying like, oh, I'll accept a trade to one of these 8 teams and I don't really need a contract extension. But now you're going to take a contract extension from the Jets? I don't get it.
So that's my biggest gripe with him, is the whole I'll play elsewhere on the same contract, but if I'm going to play for you, I want a crap ton of money. And that's just like rubs me the wrong way entirely. I think it's a bad move, and I think it undermines a lot of his personality and his bravado of I'm the leader and the team first and whatnot. And I think he's going to have some issues with some of the guys if he shows up to camp. I don't think Joe Douglas is going to offer him a contract this year. Maybe at the end of next season will be the first time we kind of hear some rumblings about it. Do you think he holds out, or do you think he actually plays this season if we have the season?
I don't think it makes much sense for him to hold out. I think he would have to play, which is kind of contradicts everything that he said on social media, but I just don't think logistically it makes a whole lot of sense for him to hold out.
Well, so the other side of this potentially,
Mhm.
if some rumors that we're kind of hearing might be true, is that there could be a player opt out. So imagine Jamal Adams opts out for the year because of the whole COVID concerns, and then isn't penalized, and then just foregoes a year of service without having to injure his body. Remember, his dad was a running back for the Giants, got injured, and never signed a big contract. So I could see that being in the discussion.
Yeah, if there's definitely an opt out, I could see him doing it that way. If it was like just your regular holdout, kind of like what Le'Veon Bell did a couple years ago, I don't
Mhm.
know if that would be something that he would do. But it's just this whole situation. The more that he tweets and the more that he talks, it just seems to get more and more hostile and volatile. And I'm not sure how Joe Douglas is able to get out of this in any positive way. What's in your mind? What's his best move to do with a player like this?
I think they're kind of doing it the right way. They're all backing him publicly. Um, with the uncertainty with the cap for 2021, the strength of schedule, everything that kind of goes into it, the amount of money that Jamal's even asking for anyway. It's not like he's just asking for, $14 million. My guess is I think he's asking for at least 17. I've heard rumors as much as 20, and that's just not the type of player you should be signing right now. You have the team control for at least 2 years that he has under contract, plus the franchise tags if you want to use it. So there's no rush to do this right now. And I think if you're Douglas, you say all the right things of, hey, we want to keep you here long term. We're willing to talk about everything. It's just something that I think we're going to hold off to till next year. And I think if he came out and said that, I think fans would understand it. I think Jamal would be upset, but at least they're being honest with him.
Yeah, at that point, I could definitely see that as a possibility. If you had to put a percentage on Jamal getting traded, so I guess realistically what he really wants,
Mhm.
what are your feelings on something happening before this season?
I don't think it'll happen before the season. The only trade I think that would make sense before the season would be if the Jets could get Collins, the right tackle from Dallas. I would do that in a heartbeat, and I would trade him straight up for it. I don't need any other compensation.
Gotcha.
Um, I think that's going to be a little tough for Dallas to want to trade. And then I would say before the season, slim, maybe 20%. I would say at the deadline, that jumps up to maybe like 65, 70%. And I think after the season, if we can't get a contract done, that's when we would move him.
Now, I did see something this week on Twitter about Jacksonville that they were supposedly like stuff was heating up with Yannick Ngakoue. Could you see a possibility of a swap there with two guys who don't seem happy in their locations currently?
So that is definitely one of my favorite scenarios. I love the idea of sending him to Jacksonville because I don't think Jacksonville's a very good team.
Right.
And I love Ndakwe. Like, I really like him a lot. And I'm okay with Fant playing right tackle. So if we don't get Collins, like, that's not the end of the world. If we do get Collins, that's, left tackle, right tackle, center, lockdown for like 4 or 5 years. So I'm good with either one of those trades. I really like Ndakwe.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. To me, and again, you tell me if you feel differently. If I'm making a trade for Jamal Adams or trading Jamal Adams away, I guess I should say, the only position I would really care about improving on the defensive side of the ball is edge. Other than that, I think if I'm moving him, I'd rather get, the picks and either an offensive lineman or a wide receiver. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I really do. I would say I don't think there's anyone out there as far as a cornerback goes. That would be the other position I might consider, but edge rusher seems like the more glaring need. Offensive line, wide receiver, so like Gallup or there's probably a few other ones out there that I'm forgetting, but I think there's some options for the Jets. But edge rusher, offensive line would be the two, like 1A, 1B for me.
Absolutely, and I think we're pretty much in the same boat there. Anything else on Adams before we get out of here that you wanted to get off your chest?
Oh man, I've been saying it for so long. I was like, this guy doesn't want to be here, and it's just
You're right.
It gives me a little bit of, it gives me a little bit of. I don't want to be happy that I was right because like I kind of wanted to be wrong here, and it is kind of nice to say, I told you so. I was paying attention to this. I was reading the tea leaves, and I guessed right.
No, absolutely. You've been on this one since day one. That's why I want to have you on. And appreciate your insight as always. That is Ryan Jets Talk 24/7. Check him out on his YouTube page. Get all his videos, his live streams on Monday, the Talking Jets panels on Tuesday. and everything else he's got going on over there. Ryan, appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Thanks again to Ryan for coming on. Always a blast talking New York Jets with him. We're going to get into the voicemails and the questions for this week. First one comes from Instagram. The username is @KidWaviator. Oh, man. I told him I wasn't going to get the name wrong. I'm almost positive I did. Waviator. I'm pretty sure that's it. So essentially what the question is, sorry if I mispronounced it, buddy. Are you confident in the actual talent that Joe Douglas has put on the roster, and can you realistically see the roster as something to build on into a contender? And essentially that's what he was asking, is what I think of the roster right now, and what do I see them becoming in the future? And I don't think it's really fair to answer this just yet. And the reason for that, yes, I understand he has a draft under his belt now and one free agency period. But I think that Joe Douglas realizes how important it is to build through the NFL draft. And I think it's going to take at least another draft and free agency period before we really see who the key building blocks of this team really is. And the reason why I say that is because a majority of the free agent contracts that he signed were one-year deals. So it's kind of just stopgap or prove-it kind of deals. Is Jordan Jenkins a building block piece? We'll find out. Is George Fant someone who's going to be around long-term? Is Le'Veon Bell going to be around long-term? Perryman, you can go down and down the line. And I think realistically what we're seeing from this Jets team is, yes, they're trying to be competitive in 2020, but they're also trying to see who is going to be on this team for the long haul. And we're going to really have to wait and see. I don't necessarily know if Joe Douglas is confident in the roster as is. I think as they are, I think they're about a 500 team, maybe a little bit less than that right now. They definitely still need to add some work in terms of long-term building block pieces. There's no doubt about it. But if we have this conversation in another year, maybe I'm a little bit more confident. But right now I'm probably leaning towards no, as they don't have enough pieces right now to lead me to believe that they're going to be built into a contender. Again, that could change if we see another draft and another free agency period with Joe Douglas at the helm. So just wanted to get that one out there. Thank you so much for the question. We'll go to the voicemails now. I listened to this one, I don't know how many times. I think at least 5 times. Couldn't figure out the name he says in the beginning, but he's calling in from D.C., and he has a record prediction. So let's hear from Unknown calling in from D.C.
Hey, it's Son Trigg from outside the D.C. area, originally from Brentwood, Long Island, though. Hey, I got to see the guarantee. I'm telling you, I'm going on record right now for your show if you want to put it up there. 12-4 this year. It's the Corona season. Downtown Darnold is going to bring the bomb back. The screen pass is going to rip. They're going to have a record of screen pass yards this year.
I love this
Green
guy.
Beast is back.
What is this?
J-E-T-S, Jets. Enjoy the Corona season. 12-4. You can hold me to it.
What was that? What was that? Oh, that was amazing. I'm sorry. That was great. 12-4, I think, is probably a stretch. I love the optimism. I hope you're right, man. I'd be the happiest guy in the world if this team goes 12-4. That would mean that, like you said, Darnold would be absolutely just going off. And I really do think that Darnold improves going into year 3. I truly believe that. I'm hoping that we see the kind of numbers where there's no question about him being a franchise quarterback. He plays all 16 games. I just think with the Jets' schedule, it's going to be very, very tough for them to have a winning record, let alone winning 12 games. I would love for that to happen. Again, I would love a 12-4 season. I'm just not betting on it, but apparently that guy is. So if you want to take that one to the bank, you're more than welcome. Next up is Dom from Floral Park, and he wants to talk a little bit about a couple of things. One, Jets on Instagram and some positivity, and then a question on cornerback depth. So let's get into the question from Dom.
Hey, Matt, how's it going? Dom from Floral Park, Long Island. Listen, I just had more of an observation than a question, but I follow these guys on Instagram, you know, the new Jets, old Jets, especially the guys that just came in last year, talking about Poole, Alex Lewis, Arthur Millette, all these guys. To me, it seems like from what I'm seeing on their social media, all these guys have a real strong sense of team, all these guys have a really strong sense of not only team but teamwork. They really seem like they're the type of guys that you're gonna want to build off of in terms of mentality, not necessarily their talent level, that's to be seen, but the mentality that these guys have really seems like it's something that we want to build on for the future. I just kind of wanted to see if you observed the same thing, if these things hold true to you. And also, I guess as a kind of constellation question, a lot of the people we brought in the secondary, Bless Austin, Mollett, Bryce Hall, Quincy Wilson, Pierre Desir, all these guys, seems like we've added a lot of depth and experience. And I just want to know how you feel about the state of our secondary right now, because I think it's looking up. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm excited about the depth. And, yeah, thanks for taking my question. Go Jets, and keep up with the good work. Have a good one.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question, my man. Good stuff. I agree with you on the social media, especially with those guys. I think Alex Lewis's social media presence, especially on IG, has been pretty positive, and he's even come to the defense of Adam Gase, which, if you guys watch me, you know I'm not a fan of Adam Gase, but the fact that his players, or that he is standing up for his coach, I love that. I don't want there to be any toxicity, and maybe he doesn't feel that way. Who really knows? But the fact that he went public and said he defended his guy, I'm happy about that. That's great. And I do think for the most part, a majority of the Jets on social media, they have a positive mindset, or the right mindset, in terms of, building a good culture, because that's what Joe Douglas is trying to do. At the end of the day, which is really something that I think gets beaten to death too often sometimes, changing the culture. But I do believe that Joe Douglas is trying to do that. I mean, look at the draft. How many captains or former captains did he draft in this year's draft class? A ton. He's really looking for high character guys. And when you have a long way to go, I completely understand that mindset. I also understand bringing in talent. I think you have to have a mix of both. But I see why Douglas is doing it, no doubt. And as for the secondary, and specifically the corners, I'm there with you. I think Bless Austin, I really believe, could be a solid second corner. I don't think he's going to be like a premier shutdown, like your number one corner, but kind of like how Antonio Cromartie was a very, very good running mate for Darrelle Revis. I kind of think he's going to be in that regard. An above average starter, no doubt for sure, but I don't think he's going to ever be like that true number one corner, which is fine. If you're getting that out of a 6th-round pick, you hit, no doubt. You absolutely hit on that pick. I like the Hall pick a ton. Here's my hot take. I think Hall and Austin are your two starting outside corners in 2021. Pierre Desir, I think, is going to be fine, kind of like a stopgap option. Quincy Wilson's intriguing. I think he definitely has, a little bit of an upside. I know the system wasn't really ideal for him in Indy, so hopefully he can bounce back a little bit. And Mollett, in a small sample size, was good last year too. And then obviously Brian Poole in the slot is excellent. So I think that they have a lot to work with depth-wise. Maybe there's no big star of that group, but I definitely think they improved, depth-wise. So I'm happy with what they've done in the secondary, and I agree with you. I think it's pretty solid. Next up is Charlie from Virginia, and he wants to talk a little bit about Adam Gase. So let's hear from Charlie.
Hey, Matt, it's Charlie from Virginia. I just had one question for you. What would your line of demarcation be for firing Adam Gase halfway through the season? So, what would the record be where you'd absolutely have to fire him? For me, it would be 3-5 before the halfway point. Love your videos. Hope you get to the question. Bye.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question, Charlie. I think me personally, I don't think if they're 3-5, I don't think they would fire him. Let's look at their first 8 games is at the Bills, home against San Francisco, on the road against Indy, home against Denver and Arizona, on the road in LA against the Chargers, home against Buffalo, and on the road against Kansas City. I think you're probably, most likely, 3-5 and 4-4 after those games. If the Jets go 1-7, I'm firing them. 2-6, you could maybe even sell me on 2-6. 3-5, I don't think they would. I'm not saying that's necessarily what I would do. I'm just saying I don't think the Jets would do it. I I'm gonna say 2-6 would be my answer. I know 3-5's your answer. I just think they would believe in their mindset that they're still in it. At 2-6, I wouldn't be surprised if they did decide to move on. We did see a couple of years ago, actually, in Cleveland with Greg Williams when he stepped in as the interim head coach. He got a lot out of that team, no doubt. And I like him in the interim role. I wouldn't like him as a full-time head coach. I think he's, perfectly suited as a defensive coordinator. I think that's what he does best. I definitely think he's an upgrade over Adam Gase, though. But long term, he wouldn't be my head coaching option. But yeah, if you're telling me that the Jets are somehow 2-6 after their first 8 games, then yeah, give me Greg Williams in for Adam Gase, get Dowell Loggins out with him, and let Jim Bob Cooter run the offense. It can't be much worse than what we saw last year, that's for sure. So thank you so much, Charlie, for the question. Next up is CC from Florida, wants to talk Quincy Wilson.
Hey, Matt, it's CT from Florida, huge Jets fan by way of New York. I just had a quick question. I think people are low-key sleeping on the 6th-round trade for Quentin Nelson that Joe Douglas pulled off during the draft. So with that trade, do you see there's any possibility of Quentin Nelson becoming a starting caliber cornerback? Also, really quickly, do you think that people are over-exaggerating this $20 million contract that Jamal Adams is asking for? Wouldn't there be negotiations that move it down to, $15 million, that people are worried about? Thank you. Love your show. And go Jets.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So with Quincy Wilson, I definitely think he has a chance in training camp to be an outside corner. To me, this is just a depth move. They do have a lot of depth at the position. I would bet on it being Pierre Desir and I just said his name and I'm blanking out on it. Bless Austin as the starting outside corners. That's what my guess would be. But if there's an injury, I definitely think Quincy could step up. And you have to get through the year with more than 3 or 4 corners. You use a lot of cornerbacks as the season goes on, so he's going to get some playing time. As for the $20 million thing with Jamal Adams, the player wants to get paid the most amount of money. I understand that. I really do. The issue that is really for me is when you look at the the safety market. Highest paid safety in football is getting $14 million and change. So $6 million more, or almost $6 million more, than the highest paid player at the position is a stretch. If you want to start that number at 17 and you get to 15, it makes a little bit more sense, right? Highest paid Jet, I think, is C.J. Mosley at a little over $17 million. So if you could say, hey, I want C.J. Mosley money, and you work down to 15, okay, fine. But Jamal has given me no indication, based on all of his actions on social media, that he's thinking rationally about this situation. That's been my take on it. I don't think he's handled it well, and I'm sticking by that. I don't believe that Jamal, in his heart of hearts, wants to be here on a reasonable deal. If you want to pay him crazy money, then yeah, sure, he'll stay and be a baller in New York, no doubt. But he would probably take a trade to Dallas and sign up for $15 million a year. That's just my feeling on it. So thank you so much for the question, CC. We're going to go to Sergio up next, who wants to talk a little bit about Jamal Adams and a trade scenario.
Hey, Matt. It's Sergio from Union, New Jersey. And I was wondering, with the Jamal contract, what are some free agents or any other people that you would want to see get traded for Jamal if the Jets do decide to trade him? And also, what are a key position we could get in return for Jamal? That's it. And go Jets.
Yeah, appreciate the question. Thanks so much, Sergio. So for me, in a perfect world, you're helping out the offense because that's where the Jets need the help. And I understand that if you were to trade your best defensive player, you would assume that you'd want to then try to get something back on your defense. But look at how crazy the difference was between the Jets' defense last year. They were 10th in defensive DVOA, 31st in offensive DVOA. That's a huge stretch. If you trade Jamal Adams and you replace him, theoretically, with Ashton Davis, what do you fall? Maybe 5 spots? You can get by, and then let's take into account that it's a tougher schedule. So let's say the Jets finish 17th in the league in defensive DVOA. You can win with a 17th overall defense. And I'm not saying you got to be all offense and have the worst defense in the entire league and expect to win a bunch of games. I'm not necessarily saying that either. But I think if you could say, or if you could ask me, I would sign up for a middle-of-the-road offense and a middle-of-the-road defense rather than a top 10 defense and a bottom 3 offense. I think you're more likely to win with middle of the pack in both categories rather than a top-tier defense and a bottom-tier offense with how the league is going. So ideally, I would like an offensive player. The only defensive player I have a lot of interest in is Yannick Ngakoue, just because it's a huge position of need. He's unhappy in Jacksonville. Jamal's unhappy in New York, so sending Jamal to Jacksonville would be pretty funny. And getting a 24, 25-year-old pass rusher who can give you double-digit sacks would be awesome. I'm all in on that. Other than that, wide receiver would be huge. Michael Gallup's a name that comes up a lot and I think makes a ton of sense. Or if you can give me a right tackle, that would be great also. But ultimately, I think the key positions you need to look at is wide receiver, offensive line, or edge. Those would be the 3 positions that I would target. So thank you so much for the question, Sergio. Next up is Sam from California, wants to talk about some Madden.
Hey, this is Sam from California. Obviously, you know that, Coach. I just wanted to tell you, can you please stop making me throw interceptions?
I'm trying.
Madden.
I'm trying.
It makes me look bad, and I know I can play a lot better than that. So I do apologize for my errant throws that I do throw. Also, do you think it'd be possible that I can get a 10-year contract worth $500 million? If not me, is there any NFL player you would consider giving a 10-year contract to? Go Jets.
That's hysterical. So if you don't have any idea what he's talking about, so I've been doing a series. It's called What If Adam Gase Was Never Hired as the Jets Coach? And essentially what I'm doing is I'm replaying the 2019 season, and I created myself in the game as the coach. And I'm getting accustomed to it. I haven't played video games in close to a decade before I started this series. I'm a little rough with the interceptions. So Sam has more touchdowns than interceptions. His passer rating's in the 90s, but he has a lot of picks. And that was a really funny phone call. Thank you for that. As for the second part, no, I'm not giving Darnold a 10-year deal. Not yet, anyway, unless something crazy happens in this next year. I expect Darnold to get a second contract. That's not an issue for me. But as for I think there's only one other player in the league that I would give a 10-year contract, and that's Russell Wilson. That's the only other player that I feel comfortable doing it with. I'm a big fan of Deshaun Watson, but with his injury history and the torn ACL and from his rookie year, and he's just had a couple of knee injuries, that would scare me, giving him a 10-year deal. I don't think Lamar is going to get a 10-year deal. Now, I'm not someone who thinks that Lamar is going to regress and be awful, but I do think we see a little bit of a step back from Lamar this year. I don't think he's going to be someone who's going to be an MVP candidate this year. Just my take on it. By the way, I'll give you a hot take. How about this? My hot take for this year is that Kyler Murray is the MVP. But yeah, I think Russell Wilson's the only guy I would give a 10-year contract to. And I understand that he's older, but I don't think there's anyone else who I'd give a 10-year deal to in the league other than Pat Mahomes or Russell Wilson, 2 best quarterbacks in the sport. That's just my take. Next up is Travis from Ohio. Always electric call. Let's hear from Travis.
Hey, Matt. Travis from Ohio.
I think it gets louder every time.
Hey, buddy. I watched your video about the Madden ratings and pretty much agree with everything you say. This call isn't about that. It's about thinking of Sam Darnold.
Okay.
Because his rating on there is super ass low. Sorry about the language.
That's okay.
And it reminded me of Colin Cowherd's comment that he was basically playing offense with one furniture out there. So
kind of
after all the injuries and lack of talent, because Joe Douglas, my man, did not come in for the draft and before that. So, the only other quarterback that I remember that came in and ran an offense successfully to lawn furniture was Brett Favre. And he does that with any team he's with. So he just elevates, but he's Brett Favre. I mean, he's the Brett Favre of football. So, and he did that at age close to 40. So Sam Darnold did that at age 22, you know? So, in 21, 22. So, and 23 this year. So, this is more support for Sam and another good argument, I think, for the man. And I love him, and I'm just worried he's going to come down with corona this year.
Oh, no.
With all the mono and injuries
no
of his
corona
rookie
for Sam.
year. I mean, just because it seems he's been, you know, he just has that against him. So, anyway, your thoughts. Love you. Stay healthy. Bye.
You too, buddy. Thank you for the call. As always, love you, brother. For Darnold, I definitely think that his supporting cast has probably been the worst out of quarterbacks drafted in the first round. Outside of maybe Josh Rosen, his situation's been pretty garbage. But when you look at what Buffalo has done for Josh Allen, am I a fan of Josh Allen as a prospect? Not really. But I do think they've done a much, much better job at building around him than what the Jets have. Baker Mayfield in Cleveland, they have done a really good job of putting pieces around him, no doubt. So I really think that Joe Douglas has to continue to make life as easy as possible for Sam. At minimum, I think here's a positive that you could take away. The offensive line's been completely revamped. While I think they probably need another wide receiver in here before I'm very confident in the offense, I think Sam just being able to have the time to throw is going to make a huge difference, and we should see the numbers go up. So I agree with you for the most part on this, Trav. I really think that he's been able to do a decent amount with not a lot, and hopefully with a much improved offensive line, you're going to be able to see a much better version of Sam Darnold, which I'm really excited about in 2020. Last one's from Phil. He wants to also talk a little bit about Adam Gase.
Hey, Matt, it's Phil. A quick question I have is, if Adam Gase plays pretty poorly in the first half of the season, which I expect him to,
right?
Would you be open to firing him mid-season? I know it might not be great for the team, but I wouldn't be surprised if we did. So let me know. And would Greg Williams would he be the head coach now if he were to get fired mid-season? Let me know, and go Jets.
Yeah, absolutely, Phil. Thank you so much for the question. I definitely think that if let's say they start out 1-7, I think at that point, yeah, I'm moving on from him for sure. And then yeah, Greg would be, in my eyes, the obvious choice as the next head coach, just because he has the experience as a head coach. He's had success with that defense. He's a really good motivator. And then, like I said a little bit earlier, let Jim Bob Cooter run the offense. He ran a pretty decent offense in Detroit for a few years. I'm not an Adam Gase, or especially not a Dowell Loggins guy. So I want them as far away from the organization as possible. That would be ideal in a perfect world. But if Adam Gase, if they do pull the plug on him, I think they'd make Williams the interim head coach, but I would be very surprised if he became the full-time head coach after that. I would really think that Joe Douglas would like to run a coaching search on his own, which I think he definitely deserves, and hopefully they hire Eric Bieniemy or PJ Fleck. That'd be a lot of fun. So thank you so much for the questions this week. I love doing this show, and thank you once again to Ryan for coming on. Always great to talk to him. Be on the lookout, by the way. We are coming back with a Talking Jets panel soon. So stay tuned. I'll keep you updated. Also, if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to the show, whether it be on the YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcast, and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot, and I appreciate all the love and support from each and every one of you. I really mean that. So thanks so much. I'm Matt O'Leary. I'll talk to you next time.